I want us to speak to two specific issues in this regard, and begin with the whole issue of sexuality, because one of the areas where there is big compromise is in regard to sexual purity. There's a research that has shown that among committed Christians, more than 50% have a sexual experience before they are 21 years old. That could be, along the whole stream of what a sexual experience will look like. What would you say is the net effect of sexual sin in a Christian community?
Now, sexual sin is not just sin against God. It's actually a debasing of yourself. You orchestrate a system where you lose your own personal worth and value. I know we have now a culture, in not even national culture, a global culture, which is trying to push more into sex, because there are some merchants of evil that are trying to make more money by getting more youthful people. And this has been the biggest challenge in Africa. Interestingly, much reduced in the West, because the focus is on Africa, which has the largest young population. And so they are trying to make billions of dollars, not Kenya shillings, out of the youthful people by the way what they are promoting in social media and what they are promoting through print and electronic media, to try and convince a young person this is the way to go. But they know if they can be able to destroy you at that age and be able to make money, they hook you up. It's like this is like drugs. They hook you up early. They know they have you for almost 40, 50 years. And it's an individual, it's a cartel of people that are making money out of innocent young people. And that's why when we build our conviction and what we start for, it doesn't matter if everyone else seems to say how good it is, because some are paid to be propagators of the same, to share like testimonies of how glorious it was. And yet actually they only want you hooked up. Well, that's where they'll sell condoms, that's where they'll sell the pills the morning after. And today they know there are people who are in that business and would know, and they will sponsor ads, social media ads. You open Facebook and the first ads that will come, you will see certain things. So that is why for us who are Christian, by God's grace, we have been transformed so that it's not what appeals everyone that honors God. And I want to challenge the young people, do not get into a prison while the Lord has come and has brought freedom to you. Jesus declared in Luke chapter 4 that he came to free the prisoners. And these could be prisoners of media, those who have gotten habits and attitudes that are brought to them, so that you are not taken captive because you have Christ, who came to actually bring freedom to you. So my challenge is that yes, this seems to be the way things are going, but you're better off being able to keep your purity, your sexual purity. I mean, at the very least, they lose their self-worth. You find people are now depressed. You find they have been with multiple partners. That's why we, like the other day, I was praying for a very young child at the age of 16. She had lost her womb. Her womb was being, and actually if you get to know the challenges we have today, and I can get the medic who has been handling them for you to hear a little more. A young 16-year-old went with multiple partners, and finally she lost her womb. She has no chance of ever getting a child later. And that was she started exposure to sex much early. And we have many who are struggling with a lot of health issues because they could not wait. It's an evil. There are many, and I am sure as they come out in the society, they will hear the pain and the cry. You've seen lately that we have had more suicides among young people happening. You listen to reasons on some of the suicide notes that remain behind is because they have lost their self-worth. They have lost their value. They don't see why they should live. All those they thought, some have turned to sponsors. They thought their life would be any better just to be misused, and they are left to suffer, some with chronic illnesses after that escapade, and they are unable to bring their life together. Thank God for Christ, who came to satisfy all the desires. I mean, the sensual desires. He's able to satisfy them. And each one of us, or those of us who are able to hold our ground until marriage, we are having fun today, having taken care of ourselves to date.
And talking about marriage, and I'm glad you came to that point, because one of the other extremes that young people are falling into is a seeming rush into getting married that seems to, not care about marriage being a process, and people will be rushing into it. And I want you to respond to that or make a comment on that, coupled with a comment on any gaps you see in our discipleship as far as sexual purity and the whole idea of sexuality is concerned.
The mad rush towards marriage, people are looking for meaning and security. And oftentimes people are going that way because they tripped in maintaining who they are, their value. But now they rush to men and men to women, hoping they will be able to recapture their value. That is one of the devastating things that we are experiencing in our country today. You mismanaged yourself. You are unable to be patient with yourself and allow time to make you, because the Lord is in control. And now they hope by connecting with someone else, you will be able to recapture that value, just to discover no one else can give you value in life except Christ himself. Until you're able to reconcile yourself with Christ, even if you tripped, it's not too late. Don't pair up with someone else hoping those hangovers or those the inadequacies will be atoned by another human being. So that is part of the challenge you're having today, and thinking we don't have enough men, so when you find one, rush quickly. It's like what you call a gold rush. My friend, it's not, life is not a sprint. It's a long journey. It's a marathon. You have to learn to pace yourself, because and this was our philosophy in the Christian Union. I will not marry because others are marrying. For me, I decided I will not marry until I do my second degree. And by God's grace, I was able to, until I did my master's. I never approached anyone's girl because I had no time to do that, because I had set my goals. So being able to appreciate that, don't be in a hurry because others in a hurry. The same way they are rushing, you may never know how long they are here to live. The same way, if you really want to get married because your contemporaries are marrying, will you also be happy to die when they are dying? So there are certain critical philosophical questions one has to ask. Each one of us is a marked race, as the Bible says. Run your race. The fact that others are running, you do not know where their race is ending. So don't pace yourself with others. Allow the Lord and the scriptures to become your pace setter. That way, if others are rushing, wish them well. At the very least, they can only have more children than you. Are you thinking of having 20, 30? If that's not your aim, then take your time. You have all the time. And the Lord is faithful. He is able to walk you to a man. The other reason why we marry, which I think we are losing today, people are marrying for companionship only. Some not companionship because you think there is money. Your life will be better. Your net worth will be better. You will have access to car. Material things never satisfy. For those who are Christians and you are living with a sense of calling, when you are trusting God for a marriage partner, we are trusting God for somebody who together you will be able to do more for Christ than what you are doing alone. So you look for a partner who will complement you, and together you will be doing more for Christ. So the reason of your coming together is what the Bible says in Malachi chapter 4, that he brings Christian couples together, so that you can give him a godly offspring, so that he can be able to multiply his effect in the society faster without having to get people who are initially not Christians. So when we understand God's idea for marriage and why he gives you another committed person, is that together you would become a new platform that can do more for Christ than when you were alone. If you can do it alone, and the Bible is very clear, without another person, it is better for you to remain unmarried. Paul is very clear on that. Once we understand that, it becomes easy for us to run. In terms of discipleship, because this is a discipleship challenge, we have a fundamental flaw in our discipleship today. Both, I think, at the Christian Union level, but more pronounced at the church level. We have a few churches now. Those are churches who are in the city, even in the villages try. We have what we call premarital classes, where when you finally identify the lady whom you want to settle into marriage with, then you can approach a church leader to be taken through a premarital course. Some churches at least now have a premarital course. Others don't. It's just one-on-one talks, which are inadequate in terms of preparation. Now, and these are the ones we celebrate as they now join marriage. But with the sexual revolution, they have had multiple partners. So they are actually failures. They are broken. They are hurting. So even when they finally come to say they want to settle in marriage, actually they are broken pieces. Only that as human beings, we can't see the heart. And so there is a way in which we tend to celebrate you at the tail end, while actually you're already so broken, so wounded. You're only carrying those pains and bad experiences into a union that was meant to be holy and glorious. So in terms of discipleship, we need to start processes of working with young people, not only declare them holy when they are identifying someone to get married, too, but because we were responsible to one another as our accountable teams at various levels. The first years we need to design a discipleship process for them. Why shouldn't you rush into a relationship in first year? Why shouldn't you be in one, in second, and third, and fourth? So that we are actively in the process of forming that Christian and working with them, identifying their needs in first year, their needs in second year, spiritual, social, even economic needs, that by the time you are settling to say, now I'm joining marriage, or you now know yourself, you know what you are able to do, what you're not able to do, and you're able to walk in and embrace another victorious believer. So that we are not having someone who has had all the rough patches, so finally meets a brother who was able, or a sister who was able to remain sexually pure to the very end, just to discover later they were conned. That is part of the conflict we are having today. Because bad experiences, you can never rewrite history. And that's why we say, please, take care of your today. Because tomorrow, it becomes your history. And once we get the people to start realizing discipleship is about the way you are living out your life every day. So there are some of the gaps in terms of the formation, and taking care of all the other normal aspects of life. So your spirituality is important, but your social life as a discipleship challenge is equally important. The way you think about money, your economic life is also part of a discipleship engagement. So a holistic discipleship that takes care of your spirituality, your social life, your emotional life, and be able to create various stages that I can grow into, depending on when I came to Christ and my year of study, because certain age groups have similar needs. Can be grouped either by year of study or by age. And that way we will be able to support our Christian students in a way that when they step into society, they are able to do this as victorious men and women that God was faithful in while they were in campus, and two, and who remain faithful even when they step in society.
There is another issue of LGBT which just flows away from out of the sexual revolution, and also maybe a wrong view of what marriage is about. We may not explore everything about it, but I wanted you to make a comment on what Christians should do in terms of living with people who identify as such, and the dangers you see for the church in that regard.
The LGBTQ agenda, unfortunately, it's not our agenda. It's an agenda incubated elsewhere and being propagated among the largest mass or continent that has more young people. And in the last 4 years, I have worked a bit in the non-profit. You could only get grants if LGBTQ is part of it. Where we had actually almost over 4 billion for those NGOs that want money, then you must accept. So, and all the others were not giving grants. A deliberate attempt to alter who we are because we have refused it, and now they are using money as one of the channels. I have lost a pastor, an entire church who got one who looked like a good donor to support his church, and he was uncritical in the beginning, and finally got quite some close amounts of money, would get some nice cars, and finally when they came knocking, it was so awkward because most of the members of the church and their children educated by the donors. When they came and said, oh, it's payback time, there was no turning point other than the entire church accepting to go that way. Some moved out. So I'm saying it's a serious threat. So it's a foreign agenda that is meant to compromise our spirituality. It is evil. It can never be said any other way. It's meant, it has several reasons around it, but the key thing is to say it's an evil scheme targeted against the very innocent, believing Christians. The whole issue of transgender, that now you have seen the push now to register, and unfortunately that has been done as a society. Now the LGBTQ guys have been registered and are now allowed by law in Kenya to promote their agenda, including now saying no, don't teach CRE in schools, teach them philosophy. So it's an evil agenda, and many are falling prey to this. And I want to challenge our Christian students. It doesn't matter what it brings. The way, by God's grace, the Bible is very categorical. It's a no-go zone, but also our African culture has no room for it. So if one wants to go that way, because this is where the church has been, it's an external agenda. They are trying to get it into the church so that now the church can authenticate it. So to say, oh no, I'm a good Christian, why can't you solemnize us in church? And churches in Africa have said no for the longest. Some are slowly compromising, but I would want to say that we have an opportunity to retain whom God has made us to be. Those who want to make money out of it, because really they know for them it's for economic reasons. For many of us here, think it's for social reasons, and you find people who are getting some injections to allow certain hormones to increase so that you can tilt in that direction, even to change your physique. But let me tell you, when it comes to genetics, the way God created you can never be altered entirely. You can try to adjust it, but it will never be. And that's why, and you find people, they're in a crisis, they finally, and you take some basic reasons. You can do your Google search, even look at the oldest LGBTQ alive person. They have a very short life. And so people get into a trap. And yet we are enjoying longevity by allowing ourselves to retain what the Lord created, which is the heterosexual, to be the way to propagate and to live and to get everything else that goes with it. It also has a way of keeping you longer and not get into more trouble. So churches are under pressure to authenticate it by allowing themselves to solemnize, by some of the clergy accepting the offer, the finance offer, to be able to influence that agenda within the church space, some leading ones, some unable to take a stand. But thank God we are the majority who are practicing Christians. We can take our stand. When the majority takes their stand and say no to it, the few who can be compromised using finances or other reasons will never be able to stand or even slow God's move in Africa, because the movement of God's people is building from Africa to the rest of the world. Some evil schemes are trying to slow that down, but I can tell you for sure, we are unstoppable.
Yeah.
The Fellowship of Christian Unions, reaching students, changing nations.